You grip the freshly forged blade in your hands, its edge gleaming in the firelight. Oaths have been spoken, and the Longship beckons you to leave behind the only home you've ever known. As the waves rise ahead, one question haunts you: are you truly ready to become a Viking raider? Let's set sail and find out. You are born with the howl of the wind at your ears and the sting of the cold against your skin. The village clings to the edge of jagged cliffs near the sea, a place where survival feels borrowed rather than owed. Your first moments in this world are shaped by the rhythm of crashing waves and the shadow of mountains that loom like ancient watchers. This land, raw and unyielding, will become the forge that hardens you. You've arrived into a life where comfort is rare and every breath taken must be earned. Your home is a longhouse built from worn timber, a structure where families huddle together in the flickering glow of a single fire pit. Smoke curls through the air, slipping through the narrow openings in the roof, but a bitter chill still seeps in from the cracks in the wood. The warmth of a fire here is not for indulgence, it's for survival. In your mother's arms, you're wrapped tightly in thick wool, her quiet prayers weaving hope into the fabric. She pleads to Frigg, goddess of motherhood, asking for your protection. She knows the odds. Many newborns succumb to cruel winters or illness before their lives can even begin. This is why your people hold a strange tradition. You don't receive a name at birth. Only when you survived your first 9 nights, proven strong enough to keep death at bay, are you officially named. Until then, you're simply a fragile hope. Your father, like most men in the village, wears many roles. Whether blacksmith, fisherman, or farmer, he still trains with a blade because no man here can afford to ignore the call of war. From him, you'll one day learn that peace is temporary. Seasons change, and so does fortune. If you're lucky, you'll share quiet moments by the hearth where he'll pass down more than tools or trade. He'll pass down the stories that shape your world. You grow up hearing the thunder of Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, in legends. You listen to tales of Odin's sacrifice for wisdom and the great wolf Fenrir, destined to devour the sky. To you, those aren't just entertainment, they're maps for survival. The harshness of your environment isn't an enemy, but a teacher. The biting hunger of winter teaches you to endure, to value what little the earth provides. Elders remind you daily that weakness invites death. Strength isn't just admired in your village, it's demanded. Bravery, loyalty, and generosity aren't ideals here, but tools for survival, forming your people's code of Drengskappa. These lessons seep into every moment of your youth, carving your understanding of a world where no one can dictate fairness, but everyone must earn respect. Even as a child, you sense the gods are watching. In the stories, they rarely protect mortals, but they reward those who endure suffering with heads held high. You were born into a world of ice and iron, shaped by an unrelenting land that expects you to be just as unyielding. Your days are shaped by necessity, not choice. From the moment you can stand on your own, you're handed tasks, gathering kindling, pulling weeds, herding goats across cliffs with wind clawing at your face. There is no school here, no slate or scrolls, only land and hardship, and both are unforgiving teachers. Each mistake matters. If firewood is damp, the hearth won't burn hot enough to keep frost from biting your kin. If a goat escapes, your family eats less. Every task is tethered to survival, and survival has no patience for error. Lessons come not through words, but repetition and pain. Your grandmother shows you which mushrooms nourish and which kill. Your father sharpens a blade so fine it sings when drawn across hide, and shows you how to do the same. From elders, you learn that strength isn't just a prize, it's required. Bravery, generosity, endurance, these aren't virtues, they're tools. On the fjord's frozen edge, a warrior trains you. Wooden swords crack against bone. Your hands raw and trembling. When you falter, the sting of the strike teaches you more than words ever could. Yet one silent nod from him, rare and subtle, is enough to make the pain worth it. In the evening, your mother grinds grain and weaves thread. She teaches you that feeding others is its own kind of strength. You begin to understand every act here is sacred because it's done not for glory, but for survival. The land itself watches. Spirits live in stones and rivers, land wights who demand respect. The old worn of Draugr, the dead who rise in the dark. And when thunder cracks overhead, you don't flinch. You smile, imagining Thor racing through the skies, goats thundering beneath his chariot. You're shaped by this place, and now the village will see what you've become. The first frost has arrived. Childhood, though never soft, has ended. Without ceremony, the elders take you to the forest's edge. In your hands, they place a knife with a thin, hungry edge, a torch stub, and your cloak. No blessing, no farewell, just one command. Return when the torch is burned to ash, and with something to show for it. The silence that follows speaks louder than any warning. The forest swallows you whole. Frost glitters on every branch. Hunger gnaws fast. By nightfall, you feel it in your bones. Shapes flicker in the shadows, and the howl of wolves rises somewhere beyond your vision. By the second night, light-headed and desperate, you spot a hare. It twitches. You lunge. The knife falls from your hand. You wrestle it to the ground, bare hands slick with blood. It dies, slowly, violently. Your first kill by your own hand. Raw meat tears at your teeth. It doesn't matter. It's enough. When you return on the fourth morning, the village meets you in silence. Mud-slicked, blood-marked, torch ash smeared on your face. You've proven what no child can fake. An elder steps forward. Ash is smeared across your face. Someone calls out, Ulfabarn, Wolfborn. The name catches like fire. You've earned your place, not just through the trial, but because everything you did before it made this survival possible. You carve your first rune that night, Uruz, for endurance and strength. Around your neck hangs a wolf fang. You don't need to be told its meaning. Even when you sleep, the forest lingers behind your eyelids, but fear doesn't. At dawn, the village is wrapped in mist, the fjord stretched beneath it like a ghostly mirror. You've been summoned to the Seer, a woman who lives on the forest's edge, apart from the rest of your people. She's said to see what others cannot, glimpsing the threads of fate spun by the Norns, the whispers of gods carried on the wind, and omens in the patterns of bones and blood. Few speak of her openly, but no one doubts her power. As you approach her hut, the air feels heavier, as though the gods themselves are leaning in to watch. The hut is small and ancient, its walls darkened by smoke. It smells of ash, dried herbs, and something sharp, almost metallic, like the earth after a storm. Inside, the seer sits cross-legged before a low fire, her face obscured by streaks of soot and streaks of pale paint. Her age is impossible to tell, but her presence fills the space like a shadow that has always been there. In her hair are woven antlers of a stag, blackened by time. She doesn't greet you with words. Instead, she watches, her gaze unmoving. You feel exposed, as though her eyes can see deeper than skin, past bone, into the part of you where your secrets live. She takes a pouch from her side, shaking its contents into her palm with a practiced rhythm. The runes carved into walrus ivory clatter onto the stone floor, each landing with a hollow sound. She studies their arrangement, without a word, until her hand darts forward, touching one, then another. Her lips move, but the words aren't meant for you. They spill out in a language heavy with hard consonants and elongated vowels, something ancient and unrecognizable. Finally, she looks at you, her voice calm but carrying the weight of certainty. She tells you that your path lies across the Whale Road. It is far from your village that your name will be spoken, in fear, in reverence, or perhaps both. When you ask if you'll live long, her answer gives no comfort. For a moment, there is only silence. Then 6 simple words. You will not die forgotten. She adds blood from some unseen animal to her finger and presses it onto your tongue. The taste is metallic and bitter, but underneath, it burns with something fiery, something that feels alive. Her hands smear another fingertip of the same blood onto your chest, painting one distinct rune, Rado. The mark of the journey, of movement, of paths taken and yet to be walked. With this, she tells you, there is no turning back. Throughout history, seeresses, Voller, were revered and feared, straddling the worlds of the living and the divine. Some graves contained staffs, believed to channel magic, even hallucinogens like mushrooms, possibly used to provoke visions. Whether her sight is divine or human is irrelevant now. As you leave, villagers turn their eyes elsewhere, whether out of awe or fear, you can't tell. The air is still dark when you wake, but the light from the forge cuts through the morning like embered breath. The blacksmith is already there, stoking the fire as it roars to life. His forge, nestled low between the rocks, hums with heat even when the rest of the village shivers in dawn's chill. This morning, though, it's not the glow you notice, it's the weight on your chest. Today, you won't just watch the sparks fly. Today, you'll make your first blade. The hammer feels wrong in your grip at first. It's heavier than it looks, the kind of weight that pulls you back with each strike. Your hands, though tough from chores and training, form blisters as the day drags on. The rhythm isn't natural at first, but the blacksmith says nothing, only watching you falter and try again. Your strikes are hesitant at first, then too hard, but eventually they find their place. Fire, water, iron, and will. This is what it takes to shape something that can carry your strength. The blade isn't born in a single moment. Each step demands patience. The raw iron is fed to the flames until it glows like the rising sun. You pull it from the forge with tongs, laying it across the anvil. Strike after strike, you flatten and fold the metal, forcing imperfections out of the glowing steel. It feels endless, this cycle of heating, hammering and cooling, but the blacksmith simply grunts and gestures for you to keep going. He doesn't want perfection, he wants persistence. When the blade takes shape, it feels strange to hold in your hands, almost too light after the labor of making it. But there's more to do. The quenching begins, submerging the heated steel into water with a hiss so sharp it almost sounds alive. The edge cools rapidly, but the process isn't forgiving. Too fast or too uneven, and the blade will crack, wasting hours of work. Under the blacksmith's heavy gaze, you steady yourself, and the blade emerges whole. As the edge sharpens, it begins to sink when you swing it through the air. A low hum, clean, purposeful. The blacksmith watches you carve into the tang of the blade, hidden beneath where the handle will sit. Your name. No one will ever see it once the blade is finished, but that doesn't matter. You want it there for as long as the steel lasts, even if it outlives you. When it's done, he nods once, the only approval he gives all day. "It'll kill cleanly," he finally says. The words are simple, but they strike deeper than the blade ever could. It's not just a weapon, it's proof. You've created something that can keep you alive or take life away if needed. The final step is crafting the sheath, wrapping leather and fur until the blade finds its home. Sliding it in for the first time is strange, like the sound of the quenching steel. It fits too well, as if it had always been waiting for this moment. That night, as you lie down, the blade rests beside you. Its weight grounds you, though it no longer feels foreign. It's not just your first sword, it's the promise of what's to come, the promise that you're ready, or will be. The great fire burns high, its light painting the walls of the longhouse in flickering golden black. The smoke curls toward the open roof above, carrying the smell of pine and resin as it mixes with the cool night air. You kneel before the flames, the heat prickling your face and the back of your neck. Around you, the elders gather in a tight circle, their expressions serious and still. Behind them are the warriors, their faces lit more by shadow than firelight. And beyond them, the rest of the village watches from the darkness. Tonight is not a celebration. It's something weightier, something sacred. This is the moment where the words take on power, not because of who hears them, but because of who remembers them. You are no longer a child, no longer just a name among your people. Now your oaths will define the person you'll be. The elder steps forward, his staff tapping against the ground in time with the crackle of the fire. He speaks clearly, his voice cutting through the silence. He reminds everyone present, and especially you, that an oath is not a boast. It is not uttered lightly. It is binding, not just in this life, but in the eyes of the gods. To break it would be worse than death. The word he uses is needinga, a status so low it would strip you of all honor, leave you cursed, and turn your name into a warning for generations. They hand you a blade, your blade, the one you forged with your own hands. You hold it tightly, noticing again the balance of its weight. Each part of it feels deliberate. The edge, sharp but not brittle. The hilt, securely wrapped in leather. The scars on your hands from its creation, still faintly visible under the firelight. With one quick motion, you draw it across your palm. The sting comes before the blood, a sharp shock that binds you to this moment. The elder reaches out his arms, and you grip his wrist tightly, letting your blood mix. His eyes meet yours as he repeats your own words back to you, ensuring they're firm and clear. You vow to protect your people, seek honor, and face death without turning away. The crowd listens, but it is the gods who matter most. After the words are spoken, a horn of mead is passed to you. The elder presses it into your hand, and the cheers from the warriors swell louder as you raise it to your lips. The mead is warm, burning your throat and belly as it goes down, but it doesn't linger. That moment is swept up in the music that follows. A Skald stands by the fire, drum in hand, his voice rising in song. His verses tell the stories of those who came before, men whose deeds now weigh as heavily as myths. Their names are spoken with the pride and pain that comes only from lives spent pushing against mortality, carving glory into fleeting years. The fire begins to settle, crackling lower as the stars take over the night outside. You can feel them overhead, vast and indifferent, yet you don't feel small. You feel part of something larger, as though the drumbeat isn't just echoing in your chest, but in the very earth below you. By the time the last ember fades, the sword at your side feels less like a tool and more like an extension of yourself. When you grasp it next, it won't be for practice. It'll be for purpose. You wake before the sun, but the smell of salt and wood smoke is already in the air. It's different from the scent of the hearth fires in the longhouse, sharper, richer, carrying the promise of the sea. As you climb the slope toward the shore, you hear the groan of timbers settling against the waves and the cries of gulls circling overhead. There it is, where the water meets the sand. The Longship. Its hull rises, sleek and proud, carved to cut through the ocean like a beast in motion. At the prow, the serpent's head juts forward, tail coiled into the wood behind it as though ready to strike. Its eyes, carved into the grain, seem to watch the horizon with both hunger and spite. As you approach, the shipwright gestures for you to take a closer look. For weeks you've watched him and the others shape these rough planks into something alive, but you've always stayed back. Now, your hand moves along the oak, polished smooth by sweat, tools, and time. The hull feels both sturdy and flexible under your fingertips. This ship was built to do more than float. It was built to move, as fast as the wind can push it, and as strong as its rowers can pull. It doesn't rest on the water. It waits, coiled like a predator. You step aboard for the first time, the planks creaking faintly under your weight. Up close, every detail demands your attention. The iron nails driven deep into the wood, the rope thick with the smell of tar and brine, the curve of the oar ports carved into the hull. The Longship has no wasted space. Each feature serves a purpose, no matter how unassuming. The mast looms high, and your pulse quickens, knowing that soon the sail will unfurl, launching the village's strength onto the waves. You haven't been on the water long, but already the salt in the air clings to your skin like a second cloak. You find your place along the rowing bench, one out of many. On the other side, the oars stretch long and smooth, each a limb of the ship that cuts through the water. The shipwright doesn't give orders. He doesn't need to. The command comes as a chant, low and rhythmic, passed down the line. You grip the oar, your shoulders burning after only a few strokes. There will be no mercy for sore muscles. You've heard stories since you were young of how first-time rowers often faint, their bodies overwhelmed by the brutal demands of those early hours. For now, you push yourself to match the rhythm, every stroke carving forward through the fjord's icy waters. When the sail finally unfurls, red and white against the grey sky, it snaps sharply in the wind. The Longship surges forward, as though it has been waiting for this moment to truly come alive. Spray catches your face, icy and wild. Around you, the others laugh and shout, their voices rising as they bang their fists against their shields. Here, on this ship, there's no hesitation. It's as though everyone's blood has been lit by the same fire, roaring in the chest of the serpent prow. The longship doesn't glide. It cuts, its motion clean and purposeful. The vessel itself is a marvel. The shallow draft allows it to skim upriver, where few other ships can go, and its speed outpaces nearly anything on the water. You've even heard tales of longships being carried over land to bypass obstacles, though here at sea, it feels incomprehensible that something so solid could rise to such feats. From this moment on, this ship, its serpent head, its oars, its mast, becomes both shield and spear. Its strength depends on yours, and yours on it. You don't glance back at the shoreline, at your village tucked under the mountains behind you. The pull of the open sea is too great, and everything that matters lies ahead. The dragon points toward the whale road, where your legend waits to be written. The sea stretches endlessly in every direction, a rolling grey wilderness called the Whale Road by your people. It becomes your entire world after only a few days, swallowing the shoreline and the mountains in the mist behind you. Here, the days blur into nights, and time only exists in the aching rhythm of the oars. You grip yours until your palms blister, your shoulders burn, and every stroke feels like lifting stone. When your muscles can no longer obey, you collapse onto the damp wooden planks of the deck, sleeping through the salt spray and the sharp wind that refuses to ease. It's not rest anymore, it's preservation. Food and water aren't taken for granted here. You gnaw on dried fish until your teeth strain against its toughness, and you drink rainwater caught in sails or cupped from pooled puddles between boards. It's never enough to satisfy, just enough to endure. The sea tests you with hunger and thirst before it even begins its crueler lessons. When a storm comes, it happens without mercy. One moment, the waves are steady and rhythmic, and the next, they rear against you like an enraged beast, towers of water smashing against the ship. One night, you watch lightning strike just beyond the prow, its blinding flash illuminating the chaos. You lash yourself to the mast as the ship lurches violently, salt sprays choking your throat. You curse Thor one moment, then beg him the next, clutching at whatever belief will get you through. Not everyone makes it. You see a man swept overboard, his scream swallowed by the storm. His oar is kept, but his name is gone by the morning. And yet, there are calm days as well, though you find these more unnerving. The sea becomes a perfect mirror, reflecting the vast, empty sky above, so clearly it feels unnatural. The stillness feels like a trap, as if nature itself is holding its breath before some unseen force rises from the depths. The tales you heard as a child no longer sound like myths. Serpents, large enough to capsize a ship, krakens, dragging ships into the depths. These stories now carry a weight that unsettles you. If you laughed at them once, you don't anymore. Occasionally you pass islands scattered along the horizon, glimpsing green hills and golden sands. From time to time, coasts appear, lined with forests that fade into rivers or marshes. The air smells different near these unfamiliar lands. Earthy, sweet, but foreign. You don't stop though. The serpent-headed prow points forward, and the coasts are marked silently in your mind for later, when the longship can return as something other than a passing shadow. The crew begins to sing some days, voices rising with the oars to keep time. The songs are not complex, but raw, voices trailing from chants of home and hearth to sharp bursts of fire and retribution. You find yourself singing too, even when your lips crack and the cold seems to stiffen your jaw. The sound of it feels ancient, more than just a distraction. It reminds you of life, for now, even as the sea becomes your reality. The longship carves forward faster than you imagined possible. You learn it can reach England's shores in days when the winds are right, something you might never have believed before. The ship is fast, deadly, and unlike anything you've known, but you've begun to change with it. Each night you close your eyes, and the gentle sway beneath you still feels like waves. It's as if the land that once felt firm only exists in stories now. You open your eyes, stare out at the endless sea, and feel it. The pull to carve your mark into something beyond your village, beyond the edge of the known world. The horizon is empty, but it's waiting. At dawn, the target emerges from the mist. A coastal village, quiet and unsuspecting, its wooden frames dusted with salt from the nearby breakers. From the deck of the longship, you scan the shoreline. There are no walls, no fortifications, just scattered buildings and tilled earth leading up to the forest. It is small and unassuming, but to you and the others, it is wealth waiting to be claimed. Your pulse quickens. Everything up to this moment, every scar, every oath, every strike of the hammer at the forge has prepared you for this. Beside you, the others prepare silently. There are no speeches or shouts. Some murmur quick prayers to Odin for strength, their breath rising in faint fog in the cold morning air. You touch your blade, your palm still calloused from forging it, and let its weight settle in your hand. You've carried it for weeks, but this is the first time it feels truly alive. You think for a moment about what waits on shore. Faces you've never seen, lives you don't yet know. There's no room for hesitation. The gods demand deeds, not doubts. The cry comes sharp and sudden. The prow of the longship plunges through the surf, scraping the shore as you leap into the icy water. It pulls at your knees, but you push through, your boots dragging heavy against the coarse sand. The roar of your shield brothers rises behind you, a chaotic, thundering tide to match the sea. The longhouse is up ahead, a wide, sturdy structure you've heard in sagas 100 times before. In your mind, it means food, silver, and fire. The village stirs slowly at first, then all at once, as shouts ring out and doors crash open. The chaos has begun. Outside the first house, you hesitate. The wooden door swings open under a firm kick, and inside, there are no warriors, only a farmer clutching a tool that offers little threat. You see the fear in his wide, darting eyes, a reflection of something unspoken in yourself. But this moment is fleeting. Your oath comes back to you, the blood of the firelight, the vows of loyalty and survival, and you act. There is no turning back now. Smoke begins to cloud the air. It fills your lungs as straw roofs take flame, burning high into the mist. The sounds are fractured and frenetic, swords striking shields, footsteps pounding through the mud, and the screams of villagers scattering into the woodlands. You take what's left behind: coins from a locked chest, sacks of grain from a storehouse, and a gold pendant torn from a trembling priest's neck. You don't know what god he prays to, but his voice is no match for the blade in your hand. It's later, as your longship shoves off into open waters, that you turn back. The village is nothing but ash and smoke on the horizon now. It's dead quiet, except for the distant flicker of burning roofs. To its people, this day will be remembered in terror, a reckoning they'll never forget. But to you, it feels like something else entirely. The sea opens ahead, and for the first time you feel it. The weight of your name, leaving the fjords behind, carried towards something larger. Survival, glory, legend, they've all begun. The flames still flicker in your mind, as vivid as the ones you saw devour the village. Even now, aboard the Longship, you can smell the acrid smoke tangled in your hair and soaked into your tunic. The salt spray can't drown it out. Behind you, the shoreline fades into blackened mist, ashes scattered by the wind, leaving no sign of the lives that once thrived there. The raid is over, but it lingers in your chest like an ember refusing to die out. Your breathing is unsteady. Your hands won't stop trembling. Not out of dread, though. It's something deeper, raw, untamed, and new. When the raid began, you thought it would end with triumph, but what you feel now isn't victory. It's transformation. In one morning, you became part of something larger, something primal. Laughter breaks out across the ship as the warriors pass around a heavy horn of stolen mead, its surface still etched with the runes of its previous owners. You drink when it comes to you, the honeyed burn sliding down your throat, and your silence goes unnoticed. It's swallowed by the booming chants of men lifted by their spoils. The loot is piled at the ship's center, gleaming crucifixes, gold armbands twisted like vines, and other riches torn from the trembling hands of strangers. One object catches your eye. A parchment, its curling script unfamiliar, intricate symbols stretching across it like a map to another world. You run your fingers over the surface, wondering if it means more than its material worth. You're no scholar, but even you can feel its importance. Others pass it by for gleaming treasures, but you tuck it away, wordlessly claiming it. An older warrior rests beside you and mutters softly, as though speaking only to the sea. This was nothing. Richer prizes lie further south, cities with walls that stretch to the gods themselves. Remember today, because it was only the beginning. You glance at your own sword, its edge nicked but solid, and a chill moves through you that isn't from the breeze. He's right. You felt it there on the shore. The fear in the villagers' eyes, the fracture of their pride at the moment of your triumph. They broke, and in breaking them, you discovered strength you didn't know you were capable of. The sea spray dampens your face as you watch the land disappear entirely. Even as the horizon opens wide with possibility, some part of you hangs back on that burning shore. You began the raid as one person. You leave it as something else entirely. The storm inside you has only just begun to take shape. The fjord greets you with silence, though the village at its edge does not. As the Longship's prow scrapes against the rocky shore, people gather, faces wide-eyed but steady. It isn't fear that fills them now, but something heavier, awe. They stand as though witnessing the return of myth. Stepping onto land feels strange after so many days at sea, but the weight that hangs over you isn't just the pull of the earth. It's the memory of what you left behind on that burning shore, and the chest you now carry filled with the proof of your survival. When you push open the longhouse door, everything halts. A single silver coin clinks as you drop it onto the floor, followed by more, enough to make the room glint in the firelight. The elders sit straight-backed, nodding quietly, their approval restrained but unmistakable. Warriors rise and clasp your shoulders as though they recognize someone new in you. Children linger at the edges, staring at the dried blood on your tunic as little more than another kind of paint. You say nothing. There's no need. The blood spoke louder than words when it was shed. But your chest feels tight, your shoulders stiffer than before. Beneath your clothes, there's a wound that makes every movement burn. You touched it on the voyage home and counted yourself lucky, but it could have been worse. Worse meant a sword cutting deeper or finding a softer target. Still, the gash exists as a reminder of how close you came to disappearing entirely. Bruises decorate your body, dark and dull against your skin. You don't flinch when they ache. You've learned the pain can belong to you if you decide it does. At the shrine, you kneel with the weight of your offerings, Thor's share, a blade pulled off an enemy's belt, and an untouched book for Odin's favor. Its ink-inscribed surface still puzzles you, but offering the unknown feels like paying homage to something greater than yourself. Your hands press against the stone altar, and for a moment, you wonder if the gods can truly see you through the thick clouds of the fjord or the smoke that clung to the tide. That night, around the fire, the air brims with shared laughter and cheers that echo into the trees. They urge you to tell the tale, and you do, but only the pieces they want to hear. The sound of steel meeting flesh, the silver piled high, the fire that soars higher still. What you don't say, what presses at the back of your mind like shadows, are not for them. When a thrall placed at your service pours your mead without ever raising her gaze, you feel more than pride. Perhaps pity, perhaps unease, though you shove both aside. By the moonlight you sit alone. Your fingers hover over your blade's edge, finding the flaws in its steel, just as they trace the ridges of the scar forming on your shoulder. The treasures you gained sparkle in the hall. The mark on your body glows softly in the dark. Riches fade faster than legends. Scars, though, last forever. And tonight, forever feels close enough to touch. Words of your raid reaches the longhouse before you do, carried by whispers as swift as the ocean's currents. When you step inside, the air seems heavier, stretched tight with expectation. Your name is no longer just a name. It's the weight that hangs between every sentence, the pause before laughter, the nod of respect older warriors give you now instead of silence. You aren't just yourself anymore. You are you, who crossed the sea and returned with silver, and the world around you shifts to match it. You notice it first in the younger boys. They follow you at a careful distance, eyes wide with the kind of awe they'd once saved for the Jarl himself. They mimic how you walk, how you rest your hand on your blade, how you tilt your head when someone speaks. It would be funny if it didn't feel so strange. At the fire, warriors invite you to join them with a space saved beside the meat, no longer testing you with a cold indifference that marked the days when you were just another name in the crowd. Around the hall, heads turn when you speak, even if you're only asking for more ale. You feel yourself wondering if this changes you, or if it's only what they see. The raids come more frequently now, deeper waters, harder shores. When the Jarl calls for warriors, you're no longer the one waiting on the edge of the crowd, hoping for a sign. His eyes stop on you now, always with a flicker of expectation. Whatever you proved on the last raid hasn't faded. It lingers, burned into memory as clearly as the scorch marks left on the village you looted. You're one of the first aboard when the longship sets sail, and as the oars cut through the waves, you catch glances from the others. Not questioning glances, but steady ones. You aren't being measured anymore. From every raid, you collect tokens, pieces of the life you've stolen, fragments of other places that carry more meaning than they should. A foreign silver ring rests on your finger. A thin strip of red cloth tied to your arm, its edges frayed in time with the ocean wind. A brooch, chipped but shining, hangs from your belt. These things tell your story without a single word. Each one speaks volumes of a moment, a victory, a choice you made in the heat of chaos. They feel like armor, though lighter to bear. On the next voyage, as the sea rises and lashes against the hull, you run your hand over the hilt of your blade and whisper something you've never said aloud. A word. Its name. It isn't the kind of thing to share, but you believe, in some unexplained way, that it hears you. When the Skald takes up his drum and sings of the last raid, your name fills the verse. A rough verse, unpolished, but hammered together with care, like your first blade. You try to keep your face stoic, but the grin escapes before you can stop it. Later that night, a rival scoffs at the song, his words heavy with doubt. You settle it beneath starlight, fists cracking against flesh. He bleeds. You do not. Afterward, no one doubts the story or your name again. The first frost arrives quietly, creeping into the edges of the fjord and turning the mornings brittle. With the last raid of the season behind you, there's no reason to fight it. The longship is hauled onto dry land, its hull scraped clean, its seams checked, then covered with straw to sit idle for the dark months ahead. The sea, once so wild and alive, hardens into silence as the ice creeps inward. The days grow shorter, and your world shrinks to the firelight of the longhouse. Inside, winter brings more cold. Your hands, once blistered from rowing and scarred from the blade, now learn the weight of an axe as you split firewood. You take up the needle to mend nets, though the fish you hope for are fewer with each passing week. The cold moves through you in ways you can't escape, not just your skin and bones, but something deeper, something that clings. Every breath feels sharp, like icy shards cutting your lungs from the inside. Hunger becomes a quieter enemy, creeping in as stored grain and smoked fish dwindle faster than they should. Meals turn desperate. You learn to stretch stew with tree bark, stripping it carefully and cooking it until it softens into something barely edible. Moss boiled in broth becomes another grim necessity. By the time you swallow, you've convinced yourself it tastes like meat. Perhaps the worst lesson is how quickly hunger teaches you to forget the flavor of what life tasted like before the snow. When death comes in winter, it too is quiet. The old and the frail are the first to go. One morning, before the sun has risen, you help carry a body to the stone circle on the hill. There are no tears, no prayers, just the heaving of frozen earth and the sound of stone on flesh. You feel nothing in the moment. Grief is a luxury the living cannot afford. Later, around the fire, you drink and laugh too loudly, trying to fill a silence that seems deeper than words. Comfort becomes your enemy. Barefoot and shirtless, you spar on the frozen ground, the sting of bloodied knuckles mixed with the bite of snow. The steam rising from your skin vanishes as quickly as it appears, but you don't stop. Weakness can't last here. In the evenings, your fingers carve patterns into driftwood, runes of strength, survival, and hope. You don't believe in their power, not really, but the act of carving gives you the illusion of control. And some nights, you cling to that illusion tightly. The dark presses against the walls of the longhouse, and the world outside is buried in white. You dream of fire, of sails bursting to life under warm skies, but you wake to nothing but cold and silence. You survive, not by fighting winter, but by surrendering to it. This season, with all its sharp edges, is not your enemy. It's the trial you must endure. And in its shadow, you know it will leave you changed, if you can outlast it. The ice begins to crack, streaking the fjord with dark veins of open water, and soon the waves churn free again, The longships are launched without ceremony, their serpent prows cutting through the thaw. It feels right to return to the sea, to leave the heavy quiet of winter behind. But with the breaking ice comes new dangers. The wind still bites, and the waters are restless, colder now than in the heart of winter. On your first voyage of the season, you learn how quickly the sea can take. He was laughing just moments before, a joke shared between oar brothers, a break in the monotony of rowing. Then came the swell, sudden and steep. The ship lurched, and he was gone. A splash, a shout, and water closing over his head. You threw yourself toward the edge, gripping the icy railing as others reached for him. But by the time his body resurfaced and was hauled onto the deck, his lips were blue and his eyes frozen open, staring at nothing. No one said it aloud, but you all knew. Ran had taken him. The sea goddess, who jealously guards the drowned, now held his soul in her cold, shifting halls. When you returned to shore, you helped carry his body. You'd never imagined the weight, how solid and unmoving he felt. His pyre is built in silence, only the crackle of timber and flame breaking the stillness. The smoke rises harsh and bitter, cutting at your eyes, but you don't look away. Fire was a familiar sight on raids, but today it feels foreign. An offering meant to reach the gods, but somehow falling short. You've watched men die in battle. You've seen blood pool into the soil, heard death cries rise into the air. But this, a death by water, close but untouchable, feels different. Like something beyond your reach, like a reminder. The sea doesn't forgive. Every splash against the hull on the next voyage makes you flinch. You grip the oar tighter, your palms rough and blistered. Even when the waves are calm, the rhythm of your rowing feels louder in your chest than it should. Before each departure, you mutter protective words, scratching rudimentary runes onto whatever you can. Your blade handle, the mast, even the shield lashed next to you. Whether it helps or not, your hand still moves every single time. At camp that night, the usual songs fall silent. The Skald doesn't sing of triumph. Instead, his voice turns grave, weaving stories of the nameless dead. Those swallowed by the sea, without grave or glory. He speaks of Unersa, the unresolved spirits of the drowned, doomed to wander. One of the elders warns softly, the drowned don't rest, they wait. His voice carries in the stillness, unsettling you more than the tales themselves. That night, you sleep uneasily, your dreams filled with cold hands reaching from the waves, not just to drag you under, but to take something worse, your name. The next day, as a ship creaks with the strain of the journey, you carve Ulgirs into the mast, a rune for protection. The wood splinters slightly under your blade, the grooves shallow yet deliberate. When the wind rushes past you, you whisper your lost crewmate's name. It tumbles into the wind like a summoning. You do it for him. You tell yourself someone will do the same for you one day. The shoreline stretches out before you, but there's no raid this time. No fire, no rush of steel against flesh. Your Jarl has ordered a parley, an offer of silver for peace, or at least for something that looks like it. The coastal lord who sent word had once been a target, but now he sends emissaries bearing treasures and words of diplomacy, enough to make even the most hardened warriors pause. It's not the kind of venture you trust, not when you've bled to hear another man beg. Still, orders are orders. The camp is quiet but tense. You sit by a flickering fire, the flames cracking sharply. and across from you sit men who, only a season ago, might have bent the knee or fallen defending their homes. Now, their hands reach not for blades, but for bowls of meat and horn cups of ale. They pass them to you with politeness, their smiles stiff, as if they might crack under the weight of their forced civility. Their words are measured, offering trade agreements, promises of safe harbors, even cooperative raids against rivals to the west. They speak freely, but their hands stay close to their belts, near daggers they haven't relinquished. You don't miss the tension in their shoulders, or the glances they exchange in the firelight. This is not trust. It's something more fragile. As they talk, you stay quiet. You watch their faces, how their lips move, the tiny tremors in their voices when the conversation drifts too close to terms they don't like. You've learned to spot lies in places beyond words. The twitch of a brow, the way a man's hand shakes when he lifts his cup, the way his eyes dart just a little too quickly when he speaks of guarantees. You miss none of it, though you give nothing back. The fire burns low, but in your mind, it's sharp and bright. Later that night, away from the negotiations, you find yourself sharing ale with one of their warriors. He's your age, maybe. His armor is rougher, his accent crooked, but when he throws his head back to laugh, the sound feels uncomfortably familiar. He tells you stories of his own raids, different gods, different lands, but the same blood spilled on foreign soil. At some point, you trade blades with him, just to test the weight. His sword is lighter and better balanced than yours, and when you hand it back, he nods in approval. You do the same. You wonder fleetingly if you'll meet him again, on the same side or on opposite ends of the battlefield. Trust, though, is a slippery blade. Not all alliances hold. Weeks later, on a river crossing, a supposed ally betrays you. His warriors attack without warning, leaving half your crew wounded before you manage to fight free. You survive, but the cost lingers, not on your skin, but somewhere beneath it. Trust is just another weapon now, one you hone carefully, keeping it sharper than even your blade. It's a bitter lesson, but not a surprising one. Vikings understood what the world often refuses to. The line between allies and enemies is thin, and it shifts with the seasons. One year, the man beside you takes your shield as his own. And the next, the same man might bury steel in your back. You learn to look not at the hand that offers, but at the eyes behind it. A man can wear two faces, depending on which way the wind blows, and you resolve never to forget that again. The hall is alive with the roaring fire and the low hum of conversation, but the sound dims the moment the Jarl speaks your name. Not boy, not some dismissive call into the crowd. Your name. It carries differently in his voice, steady and deliberate, turning the heads of every warrior gathered there. You feel it in your chest, like an echo resonating deeper than expected, a second heartbeat you weren't prepared for. The moment stretches, charged by the weight of what's about to follow. You approach the Jarl and kneel, not out of obligation, but something more. Here in front of the assembly, it feels right to bow your head. His word is law, a force as undeniable as the tides. But today, his words aren't commands, they're approval. He calls you reliable, his tone firm, each syllable carrying the authority of someone who knows his judgment will define him far more than one life. Then he says dangerous, and you hear something sharper in the edges of his voice. Within seconds, there's no doubt. You've earned this. You've earned him. His praise doesn't come lightly, or often. The words echo the kind of power people walk their entire lives trying to find. Then comes the arm ring. He holds it up, the firelight dancing over polished silver, etched with curling patterns of wolves and roaring waves. It looks simple at first, until you take it in your hand. The weight is subtle but deliberate, heavier than it seems, as though it's reminding you this is more than decoration. This is standing. You slip it onto your arm, and the difference is immediate. The room feels like it's holding its breath, every eye in the longhouse locked on you. The arm ring says what words don't need to. It marks you as a chosen, not just by circumstance, but by the Jarl himself. But with favor comes expectation. The younger warriors, who once grinned mockingly at your quiet presence, now look to you when orders are given. You lead them now, their lives suddenly tied to your decisions. You feel the pressure in every glance they throw your way, every step they shadow behind you. You can't afford hesitation, not when their blades will swing only if you command it. If their oaths now hinge on the steadiness of your voice. The Jarl drinks with you later, his tone low and his words sharper than his sword. He speaks of rival clans, restless allies, and whispers of rebellion that ride the winter wind. This isn't idle talk. It's the kind of plotting that shapes raids and redraws borders. He tells you details before they're announced, quiet plans tied to his favor. You aren't just a warrior anymore. You're an extension of his influence, a piece he's placed carefully on the board. You feel pride in it, yes, but also the weight of it. You know that those who rise too far can fall just as quickly if they stumble. As you step into the cold night outside the longhouse, the air feels sharp against your face. You glance at the arm ring curled around your forearm, but it's not the silver that feels heavier. It's the expectation and the opportunity. The path is simple: deliver or lose it all. The corners of your lips twitch into a smile. Favor like this is rare, a flame that can burn brighter or turn to ash. For now, you'll let it burn. The longhouse pulses with heat and noise, firelight flickering against timbered walls as if alive. The air smells thick with roasted meat, spiced with something sharp you can't quite place. You sit near the high table, where the Jarl's seat looms over the gathering, casting shadows that stretch into every corner. The silver arm ring on your forearm gleams in the flickering glow, a quiet symbol of your place here. It feels heavier tonight, though the weight is not the silver, but what lies beyond tomorrow. This isn't just a feast. It's something older, something deeper. A moment to mark the kind of night that may never come again. You grip a slab of roasted boar, tearing into its charred skin and tender flesh with your hands. The juices run past your knuckles, and for a moment you focus only on the salt and smoke of it, trying to savor the way it warms your ribs from the inside. Horns of mead clink against rough-hewn tables, and the heat of the honeyed drink chases the creeping chill from your bones. The Skald stands by the hearth, rising and falling in rhythm as his verse spills into the hall, loud enough to drown the din. Your name threads through his story, woven amid tales of blades meeting flesh and treasures hauled from burning villages. A part of you wants to look indifferent, but when you catch an older warrior nodding in approval, a flicker of pride betrays you. When the Jarl rises, his presence commands silence without needing it imposed. A horn in his hand, he raises it high, the fire behind him casting his shoulders in an otherworldly glow. He toasts the gods, Odin for wisdom in the unknown that lies ahead. Thor for the strength that will decide encounters yet to come. And Freya for the fallen who may joy in her halls by month's end. You lift your horn without hesitation, every word carrying the weight of what tomorrow may demand. You know one of these prayers could be meant for you. You drink deeply, the warmth spreading through you, masking the unease you don't let show. The laughter continues and you join in, trading jests with your shield brothers. But the undercurrent of tension rises like smoke from the fire. Every shared grin feels a fraction forced. Everyone knows what tomorrow holds. Open fields, red earth, and men, many of them faceless, who will try their best to carve their way through you. The fire in their eyes tonight is a reflection of yours, but you wonder who among them won't sit at this table again. The Seeress arises without warning, drifting into the hall like a shadow no one saw coming. She settles by the fire, hands stiff with age, drawing all attention as she throws bones into a polished bowl. They clatter sharply, scattering into shapes that only she understands. Her voice is dry but steady. One among you will not see another full moon, she says. Her words clear enough to cut through every ounce of noise. She doesn't name who. Some scoff. Most don't, their hands brushing steel under their cloaks out of reflex. You tell yourself it's meaningless, but the weight of your blade against your thigh reminds you otherwise. Later, as the noise dies down, you step outside with the one warrior you trust. The stars shimmer faintly in the cold sky, their faint light drowned by frost creeping at the edges of the night. You say nothing, but the glance you share carries everything the words would spoil. If either of you falls tomorrow, the other will carry the story. It's an unspoken vow that feels ancient, a bond that doesn't need speech to make it hold. Inside, the music and laughter swell again, drowning out the howl of the wind outside the hall. This is the last warmth any of you will know before the storm to come. You stay a moment longer, drawing it in, knowing it might have to last forever. The battle began as they all did, with roaring hearts and blades raised high, but it didn't take long for the rhythm of war to splinter apart. Your shield wall, tight as an iron grip when the march started, staggered the moment the first arrows rained from the trees. Spears erupted from the ground, as though the earth itself betrayed you. The advance broke to chaos. You shouted for order, but the sound was drowned by the clash of steel and the cries of fallen warriors. Order didn't matter anymore, only survival did. Through the fray, you spotted him, the one you'll never forget. A man once bound to you by blood and bond, someone you shared raids and bread with, someone safe enough to turn your back to. But there he stood, just beyond the enemy's line, sword raised not against them, but against you. The blade in his hand was unmistakable, a weapon you'd seen cut past enemies and held in oaths of loyalty. His face blurred with the movement of battle, but stayed etched in your mind, sharp as a blade cutting deeper than simple betrayal. The shield wall collapsed soon after. There were no more boundaries of friend or foe, no more rankings of title. Just slashing, screaming bodies, tangled in the mire of broken earth. You fought not with discipline, but with desperation, like an animal cornered. Blows came from every side, and your arm grew heavy from raising your shield, your blade striking wildly to keep them away. The ground turned black with blood as it churned into thick mud beneath your boots. Every swing you made felt harder than the last, and still, you kept going. When the sun began to dip, casting a long shadow over the fields. You weren't even sure whose blood clung to your skin anymore. Yours, theirs, or both. When the fighting finally stopped, the field was unrecognizable. Men who had marched beside you now lay strewn across the ground like discarded grains. The Longship, your only promised escape, was a smoldering ruin, its sleek wood crackling into ash beneath a banner that no longer fluttered. The Jarl's banner. You found his body later, half buried in soot, his sword still clenched in fingers stiff with resolve. The man who raised you, the one who called your name with pride in the hall, was gone. Without hesitation, you took the blade he carried, not as a trophy, but as a vow. It would find vengeance for him. You swore it. Back at the village, the whispers began almost immediately. How could the enemy have known the route so well? Who had spoken secrets where no one should? The questions circled like ravens over a fresh kill, but no answers came. You said nothing. Instead, you watched. Traitors don't wear guilt openly, but you swore you'd see it before long. Viking clans were devastated, as much from within as without. Blood debts and loyalty tested by ambition often cut entire kin lines deeper than any foreign steel. The sagas remind you of this. Too many heroes fell, not to external enemies but their own. You carry the Jarl's sword now, strapped to your back not as a prize, but as the weight of loss and the hunger for what must come next. Your name carries power, but now it carries ash too. The circle closes in as the flames grow taller, their warmth barely reaching through the sharp winter air. All around you, the faces of warriors, elders, and thralls glint in the firelight. Some watch you with respect, their eyes shining with faith in your strength and judgment. Others, quieter, colder, have suspicion woven into their stares. They need proof, not words. The gods demand it, and so does the gathered crowd. Tonight, it's not just honor that's at stake. It's blood, it's truth, it's everything. Across from you, the accused stands shackled, sweat lining his face despite the freezing night. His wrist chains clink faintly, dwarfed by the crackling of wood and flame. He used to fight at your side, his shield pressed close to yours in battle. You once called him brother, trusted him with your life on open waters and foreign shores. But now he's a shadow of the man you knew, his fear showing too plainly to conceal. You know why. Everyone does. He traded your Jarl's life for silver or safety, and now they've demanded his fate be settled in the old way, by Holmgang. This isn't just a duel, it's a judgment. The elders, with their ancient authority, left no room for refusal. A space was carved into the ground earlier, lined with ash to form the sacred ring. You step forward, shrugging off your heavy fur cloak and rolling up the sleeves of your tunic. The cold bites your skin, but you welcome it. It sharpens every nerve, fixating your mind on the task ahead. The blade in your hand is not your own. It once belonged to the Jarl, the man cut down by betrayal. Its balance is familiar, but its purpose tonight is not. This is no duel. This is reckoning. The air stills. No one moves. No one even breathes as you step into the ring. The clash of steel breaks the silence like thunder. He charges you, raw anger driving his strikes. But you see it for what it is. Panic, desperation. Your blows are slower but heavier. Each one lands with the weight of loss behind it. Your brothers lost in the ambush, the Jarl cut down like prey, the longhouse that now burns in your thoughts as vividly as any raid. His rage doesn't matter. Yours is carved deeper. When he falls, the soil greedily drinks his blood. His chest heaves, but his strength is gone. You lower your blade, ignoring the whispers from the crowd. You could end him here, but you don't. This was never about cruelty or showing power. It was about restoring balance, about making the scales even again. The gods can have the final say on whether he lives or dies. The crowd erupts in shouts as a bitter wind carries sparks into the night sky. You've won, but the weight on your shoulders doesn't lift. The circle breaks, people parting as you walk away. Justice has been served, but new burdens have emerged. You didn't just survive the trial, you passed it. And now there are expectations. You hold the Jarl's blade tighter. It's not just a relic anymore. The sea stretches endlessly before you, its surface calm enough to reflect the early light like a perfect mirror. To anyone else, it looks peaceful, almost welcoming. But to you, it feels like the silence before a hammer falls. This isn't just another raid. This is the one that will carve your name into memory, long after your bones are ashes. The crew knows it too. Every man aboard the Longship has chosen this path. But tonight they look to you. Not just as a captain, but as their shield against whatever waits over the horizon. You stand at the prow, gripping the edge, the carved wolf's head before you, still gleaming from the fresh coat of oil, stares ahead with its mouth open, a silent snarl that matches the one in your chest. That wolf is yours now, a symbol not just of your strength, but of the promises made to the gods, to your Jarl, to those who fell during the ambush. Every board on this ship, every fiber of the sail, is a thread in the weave of your fate. Its repairs came from those who believed in you, and the warriors on it are ones you handpicked yourself. They're not the soft kind. These are men who've outlasted fire, spears, and treachery. As the hours pass, and the Norwegian coastline fades behind you, the air grows colder, stranger. The farther you sail, the more distant home feels, more a dream than something real. Your course cuts through territories you've raided before, but this voyage pushes farther. You're sailing to where the maps turn blank, into waters where stories of sea monsters swirl among the mist. The men whisper Odin's name as the clouds above your fleet darken. It always happens, this silent welcome before a storm. You tie yourself to the mast when the first crack of thunder shakes the heavens. You know there's no room for fear, not when every eye is on you. The wind screams, but your voice cuts through it, hurling a challenge at the gods themselves. If Valhalla awaits, it'll have to earn you. Land strikes like an axe to the gut. Your ship crashes into the shore, planks creaking and wet sand biting as you charge forward. The enemy is waiting, armed and ready. They'd heard of you. The battle isn't a clash, it's chaos. Arrows tear through the air, shields splinter, and the blood-soaked mud pulls at your boots with every step. It's more brutal than you expected, but you don't stop. You burn their banner as smoke rises around what's left of their shattered defenses. Death runs through the field, picking names from both sides. Your shield brother falls beside you, but you don't have time to mourn. When the pyres rise and dark waters carry you home, victory feels like a scar, not a triumph. The depths weigh heavy, alongside the shattered oars and the gash running down your forearm. One man's muttered prayer echoes in your ears. Valhalla takes the best first. You stare at the horizon, wondering what fate left behind. You wake to a soundless world, not the quiet of sleep, but a stillness that feels infinite. The sharp edge of pain you carried into battle is gone, leaving only a deep cold, like frost, clinging to your very being. Above you, the sky glows, not with the grays of dawn or the endless slate of northern storms, but with a golden light that seems to ripple like the sea. You sit up slowly, your hands tightening around nothing, your fingers instinctively searching for the blade that isn't there. Around you, the battlefield has vanished. No bodies, no smoldering earth. Even the longship you sailed to slaughter is no more. You rise and take in the world that has replaced it. Ahead, a great hall stands tall, impossibly tall, the roof bound by overlapping shields and beams made of spears. Though no wind blows, its mighty doors are wide open, warmth and laughter spilling out like waves onto the cool air. You step forward, unsure of what awaits but unable to resist the pull. Without a word, a shadow falls over you. A figure tall and armored steps into view. A Valkyrie, unmistakable in her bearing. Her pale hair gleams like sunlight on ice, and on her hip rests a blade older than any tale you've ever heard. She doesn't speak. Her eyes meet yours for a breath, and then with the barest tilt of her head, she motions you forward. You follow her steps, not out of servitude, not because you must, but because something within you knows you belong here. You've reached Valhalla. The doors don't creak or groan as you pass beneath them. Instead, a low roar of celebration meets you, a sound that shakes the very air. Inside, the hall stretches beyond what your eyes can measure. The firelight flickers against walls of iron-bound oak, casting waves across the faces of the dead. No longer pale or still, they're animated with life again, raised not as ghosts, but as warriors, chosen and whole. A table runs the length of the hall, piled so high with roasted boar, fish and mead that it seems prepared to feed an army, and it does. Those seated, feasting, laughing, are men and women of legend. Some, their names you've heard whispered in sagas around the hearth. Others were only myths until now, and yet they see you and shout your name, as though you're one of their own. They greet you like kin, and their smiles fill the spaces where grief once lingered. You sit beside a warrior wearing the pelt of a wolf, his face scarred, his laughter loud. He leans closer as if to welcome you, raising his horn high before roaring your name into the hall. For the first time in your life, or in your death, you feel the weight of approval without judgment. Every ache, every fear vanishes amid the clinking of horns and the warmth of the fire. There is no hunger here, no exhaustion, no pain. Only this endless feast, this boundless camaraderie. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you remember the stories. Odin's chosen, the honored dead, raised to Valhalla to spend eternity with sword in hand, fighting forever by day, feasting by night, preparing for Ragnarok. Before you toast, you glance at the hall's far end, where legends spar in shadows. Here, every story you are part of has ended, and yet you've never felt more alive. The Skald sits close to the hearth, his shadow flickering on the wall, like a wraith captured in firelight. In his hands the harp hums softly, every note pulled to set the room's attention. He doesn't look at the warriors gathered around him, though they lean closer with every breath. His focus is on the tale, the weight of the words he's about to say. Your name sits on his tongue, waiting to be bound into song. He begins where all sagas do, with fire. The night your blade was first blooded, the longships that sliced through the waves, and the flames that rose over the enemy's shore. His voice dips and rises, filling the hall with visions of that early raid, when your hands still trembled under the weight of a weapon. The voices in the audience grow quiet as they listen, leaning into the story's pull. The Skald doesn't make you larger than life. No Viking tale ever begins that way. He speaks of your hunger, of the cold that burned your bones on the long marches, of the fear that stabbed sharper than any blade. These are the truths that leave the deepest marks. The firelight glints on the scars you carry, and the Skald names them, not wounds but evidence. He speaks of the ash-strewn battlefield where you stood alone, a lone figure in the smoke, facing both gods and men. The night of the trial, when cold steel and burning faith settled what words could not. When he pauses, the silence stretches long and heavy before the room erupts into cheers. Every voice joins to fill the space with honor and pride, but the Skald's eyes are already moving toward his next verse. Your story doesn't end in a single feast or a single lifetime. You now live in the laughter of warriors, retelling your battles over horns of mead. You are carried in the runes etched into stone by trembling hands, and in whispers shared by those who dream of sails on the horizon. Somewhere, far from the hall, a young raider sharpens her blade. Before setting out on their first voyage, they breathe your name. A distant mother hums the verse softly to soothe the restless child, stitching your deeds into the fabric of their imagination. These are the seeds of eternity, scattered in unseen corners but rooted deep. Every tale, though, needs a compass, a way to guide those who hear it towards something greater. This is what your legend has become, not just a story to be heard, but one to be followed, to be remembered, feared and emulated. In the north, where the nights stretch forever, your name is no longer just an identity. It is direction, hope and warning all at once. Vikings believed fame could outlast a man's flesh and bones, a kind of second life to pass on through sagas and songs. To be forgotten was the ultimate death. But your name refuses to fade. It lingers and grows louder in the minds of those still living, ensuring that long after your blade lies rusted, the Skald's song will never die. To live as a Viking raider meant testing yourself every single day. You had to be strong enough for winter, brave enough for battle, and willing to risk everything for a name that would outlive you. You didn't just survive, you earned your place in the sagas. Would your story be remembered? Subscribe to find out what your life might have looked like if history had written you into it.